Hi everyone, my name is Kathy and I'm part of the sales and education team here at Pocono Sew and Vac. In this video segment, I'm covering part 2 of lesson 4 on your Janome Artistic Edge Cutter. And in this segment, I'm going to cover with you how to do intricate cuts of fabric, because that really, in my opinion, is one of the most challenging things you can do with your cutting machine. So let's get started in this video segment. Okay, so we're all set up here at our workstation, and one thing I'm going to do is obviously connect my cutter to my laptop, which it is. If you have the Artistic Edge 15, you're going to want to make sure you are connected wirelessly. If you have the Artistic Edge 12, like I do, you're going to have your cable running to your laptop. I'm going to turn my Artistic Edge on, and you do want to go into your Artistic Simple Cut software, obviously on your laptop. Couple other things that are helpful. Basting spray, KK2000, and I have Dritz 505 here. Terial Magic is going to be very important, and also Heat and Bond Lite, which I do not have right in front of me right now, but Heat and Bond Lite is very important. You will have to clean your mats at some point in time, so make sure you have alcohol-free baby wipes. They come in very handy, so you will have to buy them. One of the things that does not come in your Janome Artistic Edge Cutter is a weeding tool, and you will need this for intricate cuts, as well as some type of scraper device to scrape your mat. Janome has one. It's very nice. It's a little bit larger than this. This is a little chiseler I picked up, I believe, off of Amazon, because we didn't have them in stock at the time, but now we do. So if you need a scraper, just contact our store and we'll get one sent to you. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is surge protector, because this device over here is very important. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. Please make sure that all of your devices are plugged into a surge protector. Very, very important. Let's keep these as safe as possible, and let's keep them lasting a long time. So let's get started with those intricate cuts right now. So let's talk about mats. I'm using the high-tack mat, and that's what you use for paper. And I always like to keep my mat covered, and this is what I use to cover it. Now you're going to see something really scary when I take this off. Yikes, you're going to see a mat that has been used a lot. I told you I do a lot of cutting, a lot of fabric cuts, and I clean my mat every time after use with alcohol-free baby wipes, but some of this gunk is still there. And I was doing a lot of cuts with Heat and Bond Lite on the back of my fabric, and some of this is the excess of the Heat and Bond. And you know what? Your mat is going to start looking really dirty, and I'm going to do another video on how to clean your mat when it gets to this point. There's a reason why I'm letting my mat get really, really dirty like this. All right, so you have your mat, high-tack mat, and then if you look back here, this is your blade holder. Now remember the mantra righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. This black screw, I'm going to turn to the left to remove my blade holder. My blade holder has a blade at the bottom, so just watch your fingers. If you press the button on the top, the blade holder down, your blade pops out. And just be very careful because that tip is sharp. And this is a yellow fabric blade. Now, it's not yellow, but when I bought it, it was covered up with a yellow plastic tip to protect the tip of the blade. And don't mix your blades. Don't use your fabric blade for your paper. It's like a pair of scissors, and we sewers are very particular about that. And then to insert the blade back in, you're just going to depress the button on top, and it just slides right in. Now we're ready to put this into our Janome Artistic Edge, but before we do, we're going to talk about the blade setting for cutting fabric. Now normally I would start out at 4, the top just rotates, for a fabric cut. But I know that I have been doing lots of cuts with this particular blade. It's getting a little bit on the duller side, so I normally just, pop it up to about 4.5, and just a little bit goes a long way. You don't want to make huge changes. And I think 4.5 is a good setting for me personally to use on my blade that has been used a lot. Now on the blade holder there is an arrow, and I'm going to align this arrow right here with the black screw. And then once I do that, I'm going to tighten that blade holder into place, and I'm ready to go. So now all I have to do is put my fabric onto my mat and cut it out. There's a couple steps in between, so I'm going to go through you now how to prep your fabric. Let's talk about fabric because fabric is really important. You want to use a high quality quilting cotton. Here at Pocono Sew and Vac, we are a quilt shop. We sell those high quality cottons. But I've noticed that even with all the fabrics that we sell, that some cottons are not as thick as some of the other cottons. And I've noticed this really when I use the Terial Magic right here. And I want to point the back out to you. There is a website here, terialarts.com, which actually shows you how to prep your fabric with Terial Magic. And that is really, really important. You don't just spray it on like you do a mist to get wrinkles out of your fabric on an ironing board. You really have to soak it. So you want to go to terialarts.com and watch the video on how to prep your fabric. After you prep your fabric, you're going to find that some cottons are going to be like this red one, and you can see it just drapes in a very stiff manner, and it actually feels quite substantial. And this one over here, this black one, this drapes a lot differently. You know what? I did Terial Magic them the same way, and both of them have a totally different feel. This feels softer and this feels more crisp. So obviously the crisper one is going to cut better than the one that feels a bit softer. And no matter how much I Terial Magic it, it's not going to feel as crisp as this one. So the weight does have something to do with this. I can't be with you to hold your hand and tell you which fabric is going to give you the best cut. This is where I'm going to tell you. You have to spend time with your cutter. You have to make mistakes, lots of them. Eventually, you're going to get so good at making fabric cuts, it's just going to seem like second nature, knowing which fabrics are going to give you that great cut. So fabric does matter, and I want to explain that. Now, looking over at two other samples that I have, I'm going to take the black and the red away. I have a black and a blue, but these have been prepped with Heat and Bond. And I used Terial Magic on them first to make the fabric stiff, and then I ironed the Heat and Bond on the wrong side of the fabric. So when I say Heat and Bond, I still like to make my fabrics stiff, whether it be with some type of homemade starch. If you have a really good homemade starch that can get it really stiff, fine. Terial Magic is what I use for my demos because it's just, very consistent. And, I do use homemade starch too, but these have been Terial Magic. And then Heat and Bond Lite. Heat and Bond Lite has been applied to the wrong side. And this one, I can feel that it's thinner. But some people have different thoughts on this. Some people will just use Heat and Bond and will not use any type of starch on the fabric. But that just hasn't worked for me. I still like stiffening my fabric up somehow, some way, and then applying the Heat and Bond. And that's what you're going to have to determine on your end. I can't tell you what to do all the time. Every machine is a little bit different, calibrated a little bit differently. And you're going to find what works for you. There's just so many people that do things different ways. And it's not that any way is wrong. It's just that we have a lot of right ways. And this is how I personally do it to get great cuts on my Janome Artistic Edge. Okay, so now I'm going to get started cutting. And I just cut a small piece of my Terial Magic fabric with the Heat and Bond Lite on the back. And I'm going to put it on my mat. Now the mats for the Janome Artistic Edge have to go in a certain way. You have to see high-tack adhesive words over here. It can't be an upside down. Let me put it that way. So I'm going to put my fabric on the cleanest part of the mat, which is in the lower right-hand corner. But how do I put it on? Do I put it on Heat and Bond Lite down? Do I put it on Heat and Bond Lite up? Here's the issue. I have tried it both ways, and I'm going to tell you I get the best results doing Heat and Bond down. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't cut it with the Heat and Bond up, but I found that it just doesn't cut as well, and my blade gets caught on the fabric. There might be people out there that cut it differently than me, and if you're getting great results, please post it in the comments for this video because we all learn from each other. That's what makes the internet such a great place. I like doing it Heat and Bond down. So now how do I get my fabric to really stick? This is a high-tack mat, but it's not new, and it really does I need to restick the mat. So what I'm going to do is take this piece of fabric, and I am going to open up my KK2000. I'm going to go over to my trash can, and spray the KK2000 on the shiny side that has the Heat and Bond on it. I don't spray it right here because you never use basting spray. You never spray it near your equipment, near your nice surfaces, because that stuff just won't come off. So I'm going to go to my garbage can right now and I'm going to spray this fabric piece on the Heat and Bond side, the shiny side, with my adhesive spray. Okay, so I just sprayed some adhesive spray on there, and I'm going to put my fabric at the lower right hand side of my mat. And some people will use their chiseler or their scraper to really get all those corners stuck, and that's a really good thing to do. Now I'm going to insert my mat, and I'm not into the software yet. I haven't opened it up, but I'm just going to get my mat in the machine and put it approximately where I'm going to cut out. Now you're going to see, if you look at your cutting machine, and let me try to zoom in here a little bit, that there is, let's see, there is a laser guide that is projected down where it's going to cut right there. That's going to actually determine the placement of your design on your fabric. So that laser light is really important. I'm going to show you why. So let's now go into the software. So I'm at my computer and I'm going to open up the Simple Cut software. And I'm going to pick an intricate cut design that I want to use. And I'm going to pull it off of my USB stick because I have a couple designs on there that I was working with in class. And I'm going to create new and press next. And I just want to do a cut file. So this really is the only icon that needs to be highlighted. And I covered this in part 1. So I'm just going to breeze through here on what I'm doing. And let's see, I'll take one of my snowflakes. I know that's a snowflake, and I will open that design. And I'm going to change my mat because I'm using a 12 by 12 and finish this out. All right, so I have my snowflake on the screen, and I'm just going to now do a couple of things to it. I'm going to, number 1, assign the outline color, and I'll make it a dark red. And then I'm going to change the size of this to, let's see, I'll make the width is almost at 4. So let me make this around 2 inches. And I'll make the height 2 inches. All right, so I changed the size of that. And now I'm going to click to get my bounding box around it, and I'm going to go over to my object properties, and I want to make sure the cut icon is highlighted. Cutter presets. I'm going to be working with fabric back with fusible webbing. Now I did say that I Terial Magic this, but it has fusible webbing on, and that's the one I want to use. All right, so I got my cutter presets, cutter pressure, speed, passes, and blade depth is set. Please note your blade depth and blade color. It says down here yellow. I'm going to go up to my file menu and I'm going to export to my cutter. I'm going to connect, and now I'm going to kind of look at what's happening on my screen. Now, the thing that you have to remember about cutting fabric is you want to reduce your speed and reduce your pressure. That's really, really important. And I know from previous experience that I brought my speed down to about 15 or so, and I'm going to bring my pressure down to about 10. So my speed is -15, pressure is -10. That's from the original presets. Now you could try it with the preset set at the default. It's just that I feel like I've been cutting fabric with fusible web so much that I just really have a good idea what my starting point should be based on my cutter, and my blade has been calibrated, so I want to make note of that. All right, now I would do a test cut, but for the sake of saving time, I'm just going to go in and I'm not going to do a test, I'm just going to do a cut. But there's a couple things I want to be concerned with. So now I'm going to focus in on my cutter to show you what is going on. You're going to see the laser light. And when I go over here, and I'm going to try to have my videographer zoom in right here for this, you're going to see that laser light, it just kind of moved over. So I want to, normal instinct tells me, all right, use the arrows on my cutting machine to move that laser light, but they're not working. That's because we are in the export to cutter dialog box. So to do this, and you're going to kind of watch it here, I am going to use my arrow keys that are on my computer screen to move the laser guide where I want to start cutting. Now, all right, so how do I know where it's going to start cutting? This is really important, right up here, your points of origin. And you have green crosshairs at the middle and corners of the box for this design. And normally, I think much of the time, your point of origin is going to be the upper left-hand corner. So when we do the trace, you're going to see where it's starting. But this point of origin corresponds to the laser light. So what I want to do is, looking at my cutting machine, I want to move the arrow over to where I want to start cutting on my fabric. All right, so you see over here, or maybe you can't, but I'll show you. My laser light is right here on the fabric, upper left-hand corner. Here's the problem that sometimes people encounter because they don't pay attention. If my point of origin was down here, now watch what happens when I trace it. You want to make sure that everything's lining up, and you have to think about this. So my point of origin is now down here. It's going to start cutting from here and then go up and over. So watch what happens on my cutter when I do a trace. That's what I'm going to do right now. It's trying to cut up. Do you see what's happening? So it would not be cutting on my fabric. I want to cut with my point of origin at the upper left-hand corner. Press OK here. Upper left-hand corner. And then now watch what happens when I do a trace. And you always want to make sure you do a trace. So now we know exactly where it's going to cut, and it's going to cut on the fabric. This point of origin right here, wherever it is, will correspond with where your laser light is on your fabric. Really important. And sometimes we forget where our point of origin is, and then we have a screw up on our hands. So let's not have any mistakes like that. All right, so I'm going to click on OK. And now I am going to go right to cut. And this is always the scary part, because this really is what you see is what you get. So I'm hoping it turns out really good for you. So hold on. Let's give it a cut. Now, if you ever get your fabric peeling up, what you can do is stop it by pressing that up arrow button. Maybe your fabric moved over and you just want to smooth it out, and then press that up arrow button to continue. And it looks like it's cutting out really nice. I did not give you a video with my best cut. This is my first time at it, doing this video segment today. And you know, I think I pretty much have my settings down with the number of cuts that I've done. All right, so it finished cutting. Let's see how it did. I'm going to move this out, and let's just see what happens when I peel away my fabric. Take this all out, and hopefully it'll work, right? Okay, so let me just take this. I'll get this over here. I'm actually going to flip my side so you can see it a little bit better. Beautiful. Look at that. That's a beautiful cut. Now remember, my blade is calibrated too. But just, I've had so much success with the heat and bond down on the fabric, not so much with the heat and bond up. Now let me see if I can do a little bit of weeding here for you. This is where that weeding tool comes in. You really have to be careful, because it's really easy to rip your fabric. You can see it's coming up really nice. All right, right now I'm going to actually finish weeding this, and I'm going to show you my finished sample. Okay, so here is a beautiful snowflake that we just cut out, and it took me about 15 seconds to peel it off the mat. Just came right off, and look at that. Just awesome. This is not something you could ever do with a pair of scissors, the precision and the ease. And you saw how nice it cut. The negative You could even use this too. You could cut a square around it. You could get the software to cut a square around it too. I haven't showed you that yet. But save your negatives because they can be used for your projects as well. And if we look at our mat, at the bottom of our mat, let me just take the snowflake off. At the bottom of our mat, this is what we're going to use our scraper for, to scrape the excess off the mat. And then use your alcohol-free baby wipes to clean the mat. All right, so let's take a look now at some of my samples so you can see how I used the cut as well as the negative. Let's look at some intricate cuts that I did with my Janome Artistic Edge Cutter. All three of these designs, very intricate. You would never want to cut these with the scissors. It would just be too hard. But I really got beautiful cuts on every single one. Now on this last one, I did have an area on here, I don't even know if you can find it, where the cutting machine didn't cut one little part. I think it's right here. There might have been one or two spots, you know, but this is where practice makes perfect, and that's what I was doing. So I think I might have just made my blade depth a little higher. Going from that design on out because, you know, I use my blade a lot and sometimes it's, you know, it dulls over time. So we have to keep that in mind. Now the negatives, I talked about that. If you look right here, let me put this design right next to this one because this inner design right here is the negative for this design. I just peeled away the negative, put it on the red fabric. This border box right here is the negative for this design right here. So save your negatives because you can do something beautiful with them as well. I really look forward to seeing your intricate cuts. So please make sure that you email them to us at psvmail@ptd.net. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, we're on Pinterest, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if any of you have good tips and tricks on how you use your Janome Artistic Edge Cutter, please feel free to put them in the comments section below this video because we all learn from each other. We're all trying to help each other, and that's just a great way to learn. All right, so please get going and do some great cuts on your Janome Artistic Edge Cutter. Thanks for watching.